Hi, I'm Kellyanne from Kellyanne's Reiki Massage and Fitness. Today, I'd kind of like to talk to you about a couple of things. I was having a conversation with some friends of mine today, and it kind of struck a chord about, today's youth. People don't seem to understand why our kids are so messed up. Uh, You know, I think that the one of the reasons is because of us. You know, um, it's true. Kids don't come with a book of instructions, and we all do the best that we can to raise our children to be the best that they can be. But so many times we make the mistake of trying to make our kids into what we think they should be instead of what the kids really want to be, you see. If I believe that if children are allowed to express themselves, if children are allowed to evolve, as you were, to who they really are supposed to be, I really think that there would be less confusion in this world. And I'll tell you why I think that. I'll take me in it as an example. When I was a kid, I was kind of forced to be how my parents felt I should be. And to be honest with you, I was kind of the black sheep of the family. That doesn't mean that I was a problem maker. It doesn't mean that I got in trouble or anything like that. What that means is that I was my own person. I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to let everyone else run my life. And if we would just let our kids be who they choose to be and not who we think they should be, they would be a lot happier. And I really believe that we'd have a lot less problems with our kids growing up to be problem adults. Um, you know, children, if you think about it, children are kind of like computers. If you think of it this way, everything that you put into a computer, you're going to get, back. So it's the same with our kids. If you're putting in data into your children, and sometimes you're putting in data into these children that shouldn't be going in there, or that you don't even realize is going in there. For example, let's say that you and your husband are having a real hard time. And you think you're hiding it from your kids, but trust me when I say your kids know. It doesn't matter how old they are. They sense it. They feel it. And if there's distrust and dishonor and everything else in the family, then the kids are going to pick up on that. Because, for example, my parents, don't get me wrong, my parents were wonderful, okay? I loved my father, and he passed away last year. I love my mother. And they did the best that they could. And when my mother and my father, reprimanded me for something that I did wrong, I tended to want to rebel and get angry at them. But when we're kids, we look at our parents and what they do in a whole different light than we do once we're adults. When we're adults, then we see what our parents did for us all those years ago a whole lot different than we did then. And so, in essence, that every time that you tell your child, no, you can't do that, do you really think that child's going to go, well, mom said I couldn't do it, so I'm not going to do it? Uh-uh. You and I both know that when someone tells you you can't do something, what do? You immediately do it to prove that you could. It doesn't matter if it was wrong or if it was right. If someone tells you you can't do something, then you're going to turn right around and you're going to do it, right? Well, it's the same with your kids. You tell them, nope, you can't do that. Nope, you can't see that person. Nope, you can't go there. Well, you can bet your boots they're going to see that person. They're going to go there and they're going to do that. Why? Not because they're rebelling against you. It's because they're trying to prove to themselves that they are in charge, not you, you see. So the way I raised my son is that I let him make choices. And everybody put me down for the way I raised my son, Drew. Everybody. But you know what? He turned out pretty awesome. My son, I raised him so that he would be able to know the difference between right and wrong by letting him make his own decisions. When my son was very, very young, for example, my son was very young and he was just learning to walk and all that. So he's pretty excited about all the cool things he could get away with, all the cool things he could do. And he started to climb up on the couch and he was going to walk across the table and then go to the other couch. And I said, whatever you do, don't try to walk across that table. You might slip on those magazines. Do you think my son listened to me? No. As soon as I turned my back, that little guy climbed up there, started to walk across the table, slipped on the magazines, fell down, and split his little nose area right here wide open, laid it open because he hit the table. He was only about 1.5 years old when that happened. And I rushed him to the hospital and everything else. But you know what? Because I gave him that choice, I said, hey, you do that, you might slip and fall. And he still chose to do it. When he slipped and fell and he went through all that pain, do you know that that kid never did anything wrong again? Not anything from the time he was a little guy. As he got older and he started, all our kids are going to experiment. They're going to experiment with sex. They're going to experiment with drugs. There's nothing we can do about it. All we can do is love them and tell them, I would rather you didn't, but you make your own choices. If you choose to do that, you suffer your own consequences. Well, I'll tell you what. My son made one more mistake. He told me he was going to his friend's house to spend the night. Well, we all know what that's code for. It's for a party. And I said, okay, you go right ahead. But just remember, right from wrong and have a good time. My son went to his friend's house, and I ended up getting a call at 2 a.m. in the morning from a cop. And the police officer said, is this Mrs. Felder? I said, no, this is Mrs. Novak. I have a son that's named Andrew Felder. He says, well, I think you ought to come down here because we have your son. And I said, come down where? And he told me where he was. So I drove down there and there's my son. He's got his hands over his head and he's sitting on the side of the road just throwing up and throwing up and throwing up, and he just can't stop. And I said, well, are you going to take him to jail? And the police officer said, no, we are not calling you because we want to arrest your son. He didn't do anything wrong other than he's underage and he's been drinking. We just want you to take him home. So I told him, I said, okay, officer, how about you give him maybe some community service or something so that he will know the value of when you do something against what I told you to do. So the officer says, okay, all right, well, what do you want me to have him do? I said, give him some community service. So he got 60 days of community service. And he had to attend a couple of meetings about alcohol. And you know what? Because I did that, because the officer was glad to do that for me, and because I did that for my son, it worked out very well. Now, the next morning when my son woke up, I decided to surprise him with what he had done. So I come into his room and I say, breakfast. And I had fixed him some greasy bacon and some pancakes with sloppy syrup, all butter and syrup and all kinds of stuff, and orange juice and lots of greasy and sweet stuff that you could smell the minute I walked through the door. And I said, I brought you breakfast. And on this tray, I had put this little thing that he got, which was telling him that he had community service. So I had his ticket sitting there and a nice little rose in the jar, as well as this greasy breakfast. And I brought it into him, and he took one whiff of that and he was heaving his little guts up. But the moral of the story is when he came back in and he saw the order that he had to report for cleanup on the side of the streets and all of that for community service, well, he was angry, but you know what? My kid thinks before he does anything now. If he thinks he's going to have bad consequences for his actions, believe me, he won't do it. And what I'm saying is that, if us as parents would just allow our kids to evolve, just allow our kids to become the people that they are supposed to be, I think that this would be a better world that we live in. And there wouldn't be so much confusion when they grow up to be adults. There's a lot of kids that end up living at home, and then because they don't have any skills, they don't have any people skills, they don't know how to survive in this world, they don't know how to pay bills, they don't know how to take responsibility. And if we would teach our children by allowing them to make their mistakes, they would quickly learn from those mistakes and not make them again. So that's what I wanted to just kind of touch on today, was just kind of introduce myself and let you know that, I don't claim to know everything about everything. I just want to give my 2 cents worth on the problem of today's youth and what I think could be a solution to this problem. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. And just remember, when you look at your children and when they make a mistake, let them deal with the consequences. Let them find out what it's like when they screw up. Don't beat on them. Beating on them isn't going to do it. You don't have to do that. You just let them know that they have disappointed you, and I guarantee you they're going to try really hard not to disappoint you again. Our kids just want our love. They just want our support. They just want our guidance. But they don't want us to live their lives for them. They want us to just be there with them while they're living their lives and becoming the wonderful people that they're becoming. So, kind of let loose of the reins a little bit, people. Let your kids find out what life is about. Don't be such in a hurry to shelter your children and try to overprotect them from getting hurt. Because believe me, if you allow your children to make their mistakes and learn from them, when they become adults, they'll be able to handle their mistakes better. They'll be able to handle things a lot better. And they'll be able to move through life with a little more confidence in themselves. So what do you say you just kind of, your kid does something wrong, just kind of say, okay, how did you feel when you did that? How do you feel about these consequences that you have because you did that? You see. So just be honest with your kids. Just let them be. Let them be the individuals that they were born to be. Don't try to mold them into what you think they should be, because your job is just to bring them into this world and to protect them. Their job is to learn about this world and to become successful individuals in this world. That's what their job is. God's job is to bring them to you. Your job is to bring them to the world. So this is Kellyanne talking to you about problems with our today's youth from Kellyanne's Reiki Massage and Fitness here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Have a beautiful day, and I hope to talk to you real soon. Namaste, my friends.